What's going on, YouTube? We're going to be building a custom radiator shroud to fit my somewhat custom radiator, which wasn't supposed to be custom. It was supposed to be a direct factory fit. Not so much. So what we got here is a piece of 5032 aluminum. Sticky stuff. Get to that in a second. So we're going to be putting it on time lapse because there's a lot that goes into this. It's actually a very simple process. It's all about the measurements and doing precise cuts and then doing them in the proper order for bending. It's going to be fun. So you're going to see it throughout the process, and what I'll try to do is do a voice overlay or something so you actually can hear what's going on and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So let's get to work. Future Cap coming to you from the editing room floor. We're going to walk you through what we got going on here so you understand what's being done and why. So first up, we're just cutting down the material to its rough overall dimensions. And I did make a mistake here where I cut just a little too much off, and we'll fix that here later on. We're going to put some layout fluid on both sides of the material so that I can lay out the scribes, because we will be putting this material into a pan break. It's put in different orientations. Now you're watching me here scratch my head and break out the calculator trying to figure out how do I salvage this piece of material without sacrificing it. We were able to successfully figure that out. So now we're trimming up the corners so that when we go to put it in the pan brake, that the corners don't interfere with each other. Here's a brand new pan brake that we just received from Vivor specifically for this job. And we're going to be loading this into the tool in multiple different directions. So you can see here loading it from the front and back. And we're bending everything at 90 degrees to create these steps. Now this is a fingerless brake, which allows us to do different bends and create pieces that match each other on the corners. And here you can see where I'm doing the other measurements and correcting for my previous mistake mentioned earlier. We're going from a 1-inch depth to a 3/4 inch depth. Again, not a big deal. We were able to thankfully salvage the material and not put another piece in the scrap bin. A little deburring, a little trimming, problem solved. Now we want to make sure that the fan is properly centered and that we're accounting for the mounting flanges. There is a flat flange on the fan itself where it's going to reside on the material for about 1/2 inch. So this is where we're going to be breaking out a myriad of different things, looking to see what's going to work. Eventually it came on to let's just scribe it around with a hole in the center. And this is where we break out the Messmaker 5000. Yes, it does make that much of a mess, but it does really good trying to make a curved cut. Very easy and simple to do. A little more filing and a little more grinding, making sure we deburr everything properly. And of course, we've got to clean up our mess. Here's where we're putting aluminum nutserts into the fan shroud itself to mount the fan to it. A little final cleanup, and we're all done. Pretty easy job. Alright, YouTube. Hopefully you enjoyed that little fun fuck fest. But we have the radiator shroud all made up. I have now fab mounts. It's a very tight fit, by the way. Good interference fit. But I now have to fab up mounts to get this to the radiator as well as the radiator to the core support. So that'll be here in the near future. That's not going to be this video. So obviously, to do something like this, you need to be able to measure properly. Like I said, this was, I didn't say it earlier, but this was attempt number 4. First 2 attempts were with 6061 aluminum, which was too brittle, even though it's a much stronger alloy. It's a little too brittle if you don't preheat it when you go to bend it. you have cracks or stress cracks that can form, and then when there's vibrations, the cracks snap. So I tried to weld them. Didn't do so good of a job, so I scrapped it. And then I switched to 5032 aluminum. They were all 16th inch thick, so decently strong. That's all you need for this. If it's too thin, or if you're doing 3032, you might want to put a few decorative beads in it to give it some strength and rigidity, so that when the fan's going and the engine's running and you're driving down the road, you don't have too many vibrations, that it doesn't flex and bump stuff or whatever. But yeah, this is 5032, this version. First attempt at it, I bent something the wrong way, which you have to have in the orientation, because what we got going, now that I put it back in place, is we have these steps, right? These steps are to actually fit into the channel of the radiator, so that when you go to mount the radiator to the core support, they fit, right? They fit in the channel. So we had to bend one direction, and then the other step bend it back the other direction, all 90 degrees, and then I put 2 side bends into it, and that's where you probably saw in the time lapse. I was sitting there, staring at it for a little bit. If you caught it or not, it was because I forgot to subtract, or actually put in addition, the 3/4 inch flange that I have running along both sides, to actually focus all airflow from the fins into the shroud. So I forgot to add that to the math, because otherwise, and I still screwed it up because I had to trim off some excess. No big deal. So yeah, you need to measure properly. You need to understand when you go to bend, especially with a pan brake, how to get that to work, as well as what bends you have to do in what order, because it was also a problem with attempt number 3, is I bent something in the wrong order, and then I couldn't fit the tool or the part back in the tool again to make the next bend. So that's why that piece is just sitting in the scrap pile along with the other 6061 aluminum. Yeah, I've wasted a couple $100 in aluminum. Shit ain't cheap. The fan itself is 3,450 RPMs at max amperage. It should be more than enough for cooling a simple LQ4 with a cam and aluminum heads and an intake. Again, I don't think I'm going to be running this thing super hot. We'll see. If it does, it's mostly because the radiator isn't big enough, and then I will have to modify the core support down the road. But we're going to try this and get it up to temp once we get the engine fired and all that other crap. I used nutserts to attach the fan to the shroud. There's only 4 mounting points for it, so that's perfectly fine. You got to make sure that your nutserts, if you're going to go that route, you could use nuts and bolts, but you got to be careful that you give enough depth on the shroud so that there's enough room for these to not interfere with the fins of the radiator, which is why I put a 3/4 inch flange on this side to hold the radiator up and give additional airflow. It looks super tight, but there's plenty of room in here, and when we take the fan off, you can see there's a good 3/8, probably 3/8 of space between the nutsert and the fin, so there's plenty of room in case the fan does bounce around. I am not adding speed holes to this at the moment. This fan is so small, and you can see that the shroud itself is not too large. So I don't know if speed holes will do anything for this, because the fan will probably be running almost continuously at a low RPM, because this is a brushless fan, so it can cycle and ramp up if it needs to. I don't know, we'll figure all that out during tuning, and if not, I do need to add speed holes, or the little flaps for airflow when when you're driving and you don't want the fan running. I can do that. There's probably enough room to fit 4, probably 4 here, 1 in each corner. So we'll see. All right. Questions, comments, drop it down below. If you are looking to do this on your own, you will need a pan brake. You will need some good measuring tools. You'll need cutting tools, things of that nature. Little tip. Where the hell I put it? These nibblers look like great tools, and they are. They cut awesome, and they allow you to do different angles and stuff. But holy fuck, did they leave metal shavings that are sharp as fuck all over your garage. They get stuck in your boots. You'll track them through your house. You'll be finding them all over the goddamn place, because this thing will shoot them a good 20 feet away. No fucking joke. So, while it's an awesome tool, it makes a goddamn mess. So be careful of that, because you're working with aluminum in this case. You you can't even use a magnet, you know, like one of those garage floor magnets to pick it all up. So yeah, I'm gonna be picking up aluminum shrapnel for months. I can see it. Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. Questions, comments, drop below. Hit the like and subscribe if you would. I appreciate it. I'll catch you on the next one.